couple of years ago, we commissioned some research that looked at the main things that concerned people when it came to doing an MTS apprenticeship. And here are the top two concerns that people had. Firstly, that my parents would not approve. And secondly, that I would not have long-term financial security. Family and finances were the top two concerns. And that rings true of my own experience. These are the things that I struggled with as well. And what I want us to do is to reflect on these issues and to begin to have a think about how these issues can get in our way and be barriers when it comes to our own decision about taking our next steps towards training for gospel ministry. And to begin with, I want to talk about family. And I still remember a really important point for me in my own journey towards ministry. I just started an apprenticeship and I was out to dinner with my father, and he'd also invited a friend of his from work. And my father, it was a buffet, had got up to get some prawns because you want to maximize value. And when my father was away from the table, his workmate leaned over, looked me in the eye, and he said to me, "Has your father ever told you how disappointed he is in you? How disappointed he is in you that you've left your work in medicine to do this apprenticeship?" Now, that was a terrible moment. It really hurt to hear that from another person. It would have been better to hear that directly from my father. And it hurt because no one ever wants to disappoint their parents or their family, especially if you're like me and the child of migrants. But here's the question: is this a price we should be willing to pay in order to train for ministry or to do something like a ministry apprenticeship? Well, there are a number of things that we need to consider. And first, we need to consider some of the passages we find in the Bible, like Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1, which says, "Children, obey your parents as you would the Lord, because this is right." And Colossians chapter 3, verse 20, which says, "Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord." So what does it actually mean to obey our parents? And are we supposed to obey them in everything? Well, the answer to the first question lies in another question. What is a child? What is a child? And to a certain extent, we will always be the child of our parents. But is that the type of child that has been spoken of here in our passage? And I want to say no, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that the child here in Ephesians and Colossians is a young child, in distinction from a grown-up or adult. And I say that because in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, a few verses later, the Apostle Paul calls on fathers to raise up their children in the training and instruction of the Lord. It is younger children that are being spoken about here in our passage. The passage can't be just applied to anyone who's ever had a parent in their life. How about when it comes to obeying your parents in everything? Well, everything can't mean everything, can it? I mean, you can't obey your parents and disobey the Lord at the same time. And this is pretty clear in passages like Luke chapter 14, verse 26, where Jesus sets an order of priorities when he says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple." And what Jesus is saying here is that if we have to choose, and sometimes we do, our ultimate allegiance needs to be to God rather than our parents. There are limits when it comes to our obedience to our parents. But having said that, the Bible isn't calling on us to cut ourselves off from our parents, to have nothing to do with them. In fact, in the Ten Commandments, it's very clear we are to still honor our parents. And let me make a few suggestions for how we may do that, even in those situations where our parents or family don't agree with us heading towards ministry. Firstly, we can honor our parents by acting like adults and making our own decisions. It does no honor to our parents if we do everything they say and can't make our own decisions, because rather than acting like adults, we're acting like children. Secondly, we can honor our parents by assuming that what our parents are saying, even when they disagree with us, flows out of love and a genuine concern for our well-being. Them disagreeing with us usually leads to us responding negatively to them. But if we can get in our heads that they're trying to be helpful, then that helps facilitate conversation and helps us to honour them. Thirdly, we can honour our parents by listening to their concerns and trying to understand the worldview that lies behind them, especially when they're not Christian. Listening, letting them have their say, trying to understand why they're saying what they're saying. So again, for a migrant family, I mean, things like security and advancement are so very important. That's the reason why they moved to Australia in the first place, or whatever country they've gone to. Understanding and listening are so important for maintaining a relationship and honouring our parents for what they've done for us. And fourthly, we honour our parents by being in relationship with them, sharing life with them, staying connected with them, trying to engage them in what we're doing, and constantly trying to explain why what we're doing is so important to us. Parental disapproval may be a real barrier for some of us when it comes to heading towards ministry. But while we are called to honour our parents, as adults, we're not necessarily called to obey our parents, especially in everything, because our obedience belongs to Jesus alone.